Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today is William Gheen with Americans for Legal Immigration. Hello, how are you?
Good morning, Clay.
Good morning, William. William, I put a link up on my site that you had just put out an article really kind of coming down on Obama, saying he was really trying to do us in. Is that accurate?
Well, I put out the article titled Trail of Guns, Death, and Invasion Leads to Obama because the Fast and Furious Gunwalker scandal has reached a very critical phase where, when we first started beating the drums about that back earlier in the early part of 2011, I think a lot of people were confused about it. A lot of people didn't have faith in what we were trying to convey to them, did not maybe fully understand the power of the Fast and Furious Gunwalker scandal, which we have claimed can lead to the impeachment of President Obama. And we put out Trail of Guns, Death, and Invasion Leads to Obama after the very concrete information came in that shows the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, has been lying to Congress under oath, and that this scandal reaches right into the White House, including 3 White House officials identified by name.
I've had Larry Pratt from Gun Owners of America talking about this, and we've been talking about it for months. It's just now trying to reaching the mainstream, and how are they trying to deal with these?
Well, I think it's a term I use for it is it's reaching a political critical mass. While it's received some coverage in the media before, the investigation, the official investigation under Congressman Darrell Issa of California have reached such a level that they're about to start issuing subpoenas, and this thing is it's about to go to the Senate, and the liberal elements in the media that have been trying to play this down or hold us back, they're not going to be able to do that anymore. Regardless of the outcome of what happens with Fast and Furious regarding Obama or not, America is never going to be the same again from this point forward. This is a situation where the executive branch of the United States government, using at least 6 different federal agencies, including DHS, DEA, DHS, FBI, CIA, and others, have been using our taxpayer funds to arm paramilitary illegal immigrant invading gangs that are bringing in 90% of the illegal aliens, methamphetamine, and cocaine into the United States of America. And hundreds, if not thousands, of innocent Americans, Canadians, and Mexican citizens, including law enforcement, have been killed by these guns, making Eric Holder and possibly the President of the United States accessories to murder. This is bigger than Iran-Contra. This is bigger than Watergate. This is perhaps the biggest scandal, executive-level scandal in the history of the United States of America.
Well,
and we need people to be informed and ready to take proper civic action to support justice.
I may have to disagree with you on one thing here, on just one small point, William. In my book, Mystery Babylon, I documented the statements, or I reprinted the statements given to the National Security Agency by Colonel William P. Cotoro, who was a commander of Special Forces, assigned to something called Operation Watchtower that ran right alongside of Iran-Contra, but you heard about Iran-Contra, but you didn't hear about Operation Watchtower. And that was George Bush, a CIA director, working with Manuel Noriega to bring cocaine into Albrook Air Force Base in Panama. From there, it was shipped up to a little airport called Mena, Arkansas.
Yeah, I know about Mena.
And that's how we got Clinton, who was responsible for Waco. And by the way, the same people that murdered 100 people and 17 little children at Waco are the ones that are responsible for arming the Mexican drug dealers. Now, it was CIA and Mossad that were bringing the drugs into that country, and obviously, I think it's my opinion that these drug cartels in Mexico are really CIA Mossad operations working for the banksters. The banks are laundering billions of dollars of drug money, and that's been almost mainstream news, hasn't it?
Well, and I think that what's about to happen here with the revelations coming out about Obama's hand in drug and weapon dealing through the executive branch, it's possibly going to tie into some drug, behind-the-scenes drug interactions, inappropriate drug cartel interactions between the U.S. government, spanning back 3 decades or 4, all the way back to Air America, forward into Operation Green Ice in the 80s and the Iran-Contra. You know, Oliver North and Manuel Noriega all said that they had a secret to tell. Oliver North got off the hook and now stars on Fox News. Manuel Noriega, you never heard another English translation from him again after he said that. And the secret from those that have observed and watched documentaries like the Panama Deception and others know that there have been elements of the United States government that have been utilizing drug monies and the lobbying of drug funds. The banks get a real big hand in it because they're needed to, you know, launder that drug money, Clay. So, and there's been even some speculation that without the drug trade, the banking industries would be in further state of collapse than they are now. But, and some historians might even argue that drug trafficking might even be the sign of great empires, since the British used to do it with tea and then, of course, opium to the Chinese, which, by the way, Clay, now that the communists, Chi-Coms, are a global force with nuclear, biological, chemical weapons, building their own aircraft carriers and going into space while we are not, it might be important for folks to remember that some of them are still bitter about what the British did, enslaving most of the, or large parts.
We are involved knee deep, William. I mean, 3 weeks or 3 months, I guess, after we invaded Afghanistan. That's been over 10 years ago. The news anchor on CNN came on kind of breathlessly, said, we have a bumper crop of opium coming out of Afghanistan, and our troops are over there guarding the opium poppy fields in Afghanistan, which produces 90% of the world's heroin.
They've been instructed not to mess with the farmers, not to mess with the opium crops, as to not shake the apple cart. You know, and where are the anti-war protests? You know, I hear about this Occupy Wall Street. Where's the anti-war protest? Well, it's been 10 years. 10 years had our troops deployed with no mission, no clear mission, in places they shouldn't have been in the first place. And our Treasury's bankrupt, and part of the bankrupting is because of this extended warfare that's just tearing our men and women apart and grinding them into mental mush. And, you know, my theory, I've told people straight about this for a while now. Every wrong decision has been made, and especially in the last 20 years. And that all makes sense if you assume that the Chinese and the Saudis run the government enough to where they can drive this country into the ground slowly and incrementally by affecting our policy decisions and making sure that about every major thing that happens is the wrong direction for Americans. Eventually, the most powerful nation ever to exist on Earth will be brought down by such behavior, and I think that's where we're at.
It's such a situation. Here we've got the people who are supposedly in charge of our law enforcement supplying drug cartels. Are they doing this to, I mean, basically, didn't we do the same thing in Afghanistan? Didn't we funded the Mujahideen? Now in Mexico, aren't we setting up perhaps a rebel force to take over the government down there that might be trying to shut down the cocaine and methamphetamine distribution?
Well, right now these groups are bringing very powerful weapons north. They're bringing the human, bombs of illegal immigrants that in each case, by draining more taxpayer resources and weaken the American nation by replacing another American worker in a much-needed job, while bringing cocaine and meth, which they're directing towards our kids. They want to get our kids involved with cocaine and meth earliest age possible, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, because they get the kids using the coke and the meth at those young ages behind their parents' back if they're lucky enough to even have parents, plural, and they destroyed the United States, the smoldering wreckage of the United States of America. Those kids, their metabolisms and bodies are so strong they'll be able to handle the addiction for 5 or 6 years before it really starts to pull them under. And during that time, those kids will steal from their mothers and grandmothers and neighbors and cash all that in and turn that into money, which will go bleeding right out of the country along with the remittances from the illegal immigrants. Every major factory and production thing that can be moved to China and Mexico working together is being moved to China and Mexico. The only reason that they're not, one of the reasons I believe that movies and rock and roll is starting to stink so bad is because they can't move that to China and Mexico and sell it back to us, thus, creating a new line of trade to get the money out of here. They're stripping the graveyards and dead people's teeth from precious metals. A lot of that's leaving the country. So, basically by the time the Americans figure out what's going on, it'll be too late for us to fight back, and we'll have no resources or means of production to do so. And we'll be surrounded by millions of people that hate our guts and are willing to be probably genocidal towards us to complete their conquest of what was once the United States of America.
William, and since the bombing of the World Trade Center, the destruction of the World Trade Center, however they did it, and they want us arguing over how they did it, not understanding who benefits, but over 60,000 Americans have been murdered by illegal aliens.
Well, that number is debatable. We don't have solid numbers. The government has solid numbers, but they won't reveal them. They know how many thousands of Americans have been killed. But whether it's 6,000 or 60,000, this is still mass murder. This is still massive atrocities against the American people. Even if there's only 1,000 over the last 10 years, this is all preventable murders that would have been prevented if the United States continued to enforce our existing immigration and border laws as we once did, as most of the nations on earth do. However, starting back around the Reagan administration, that enforcement stopped, maybe around Carter. I'm starting to think, Clay, that when we retreated from the Chinese in Korea and Vietnam, that we never really stopped retreating past that point, because from Carter and Reagan forward, this country has just been flooded with hyper-legal immigration, illegal immigrants, and they've continued spending while going into debt. And you look at all the charts and the graphs from the 70s forward, and this country's ill health begins around 1972. And that's about when the birth rate fell to such low rates that most of white America went on to an extinction rate of less than 2.1 with replacement. And the difference between what your actual wages would buy you and what you could get, for a home and college and stuff started to get grossly out of whack. And here we find ourselves, 3 4 decades later, and we've got a situation where only through lifetime burden debt can we hope to achieve a home or college education early in life, or life-saving procedures later in life. We're up against the wall, and they've got a lot of the cards on the illegal immigration at the forefront of it, because it was Border Patrol agent Brian Terry's murder and the 2 to 3 Fast and Furious assault rifles that were there on the border that launched this in it. And I think one of the most compelling things that I've seen, it's still on the alipac.us homepage right now, that's www.alipac.us, is this CBS reporter, I believe named Susan Atkinson, and her interview with Bill O'Reilly on Fox News last week, where she hints that the documents and the information she's already uncovered are very sensitive, and that, you get the impression from what she says that she knows this goes to Obama, and this is where the trail of justice will lead.
Well, You know, I mean, it's kind of understandable to me why Obama would be supporting the illegal aliens, because I think he's one. But you know, I even ask. I've got a kind of a question here. Who won the Cold War anyway? I mean, this was looking back and with what's happening now, that was totally contrived. The Russian people were never our enemies; they've been our allies since the Civil War. And if we won the Cold War, I mean, why do we have every plank on the Communist Manifesto intact in America today?
Well, I think that you know, China may be the last nation standing of the main three players in the Cold War between the U.S., Russia, and China. They're ascending, we're declining rapidly, and a lot of our descent is coming from direct wealth and production transfer from us to them. And they definitely have a strong presence in Central and South America. You know, they were going to remake that movie called Red Dawn. Do you remember Red Dawn?
Yes, I do.
And when they said they were going to make it, I predicted to a personal pal of mine, I said, then they can't be remaking Red Dawn. There's no way they're going to allow the American public to see any authentic representation of the movie Red Dawn with Americans defending themselves from invasion in the year 2011. The movie got canceled. The studios claimed and lied, I will point out, that it was due to budget concerns. And I was like, nah, that's politics. Come to find out later what had happened was the revised version of Red Dawn had the communist Chinese as the invaders, because after all, the Chinese communists are the only ones that possess the type of resources to actually invade the United States of America at this time out of any body on the globe. No one else in the world has the even, possibility of being able to invade the United States successfully other than China. The Russians had a joke, a pretty gallows humor joke about how they had to be careful of the Chinese might attack small groups of 1 or 2 million.
Yes.
The Chinese got upset that they were going to be the invaders in this movie, so they had the power to stop production on it. And the film went back into production, and they used the computer technologies and CGI to change all of the Chinese to North Koreans. So now it will be North Koreans instead of Chinese in the film. The Chinese government, which has the ability to control 1 out of 4 people on this planet, now has the power to control what Americans can and cannot see.
And the Chinese are setting up bases in America, up in Idaho and that area. They're called economic compounds or something like that, aren't they?
Well, there's some people who are upset about some free trade areas that are under heavy Chinese influence for factories and shipments in and out, things like that. I wouldn't know if I'd call them bases or compounds. You'd have to get a different guess with a different specialty.
They do have, the Chinese control shipping ports in Long Beach, and they also control both sides of the Panama Canal, don't they? They have bases
control there.
Now, what?
But the Chinese are not going to have to worry about the United States militarily anymore, if not already, but very soon, because we are neck deep in illegal immigrants, and they've got their people all over us. So many students and government workers are now actually PLA, People's Liberation Army, that they can sneak software into our missile defense systems. News just broke this week that there's some type of virus or keystroke logger in our drone defense systems. As soon as China knows that we can't nuke them, we're done. We're cooked. And, they're really close to having us there. And most people don't even realize it. They don't realize that millions of these illegal immigrants from Central America would side with our enemies against us in a heartbeat, and may already be siding with us in just decide to hit us one night, they won't have to hit the black and Hispanic neighborhoods. They'll just hit the middle class neighborhoods and the predominantly white countryside, and with all them fast and furious assault weapons and grenades and missile launchers and such. And if they do that, they probably start about midnight on the East Coast, 9, 10, or 10 o'clock on the West Coast, and start hitting us simultaneously at night when people are in bed. Civil defense systems would be unable to warn Americans about what was happening, and they could pretty much have most of the neighborhoods in the country that they needed to have burning on fire or gutted by morning.
I am working right now to do an event in Cochise County. Now, that's one of the border counties. And Texas, Department of Agriculture just hired the 2 generals. McCaffrey was one of them. Hired 2 generals to study the situation, and they are saying that we're in a state of war right now in the border counties.
I believe so. I mean, we've referred to illegal immigration as an LIC, low intensity conflict, which is used by the Pentagon to describe many situations around the world. You know, these gangs that are coming in, the only reason that they're not shooting and killing more people is because the money flow through the drugs and illegal aliens out of the country remains very steady. If anybody were to threaten that, or that was when that starts to dry up, they will become more overtly lethal and militaristic on American soil, but not while the blood continues to flow out of the country. As long as they've got a good bleed going on, like a deer hunt, you know, as long as the deer's bleeding, the United States, America's bleeding out, they won't show their cards, they won't, you know, show their hand too much with their invasion force. So if anybody disrupts that, anybody causes a problem with that, or it starts to run out finally, then that's when you'll see more, you know, but if it happens when you know, it's just running out, then we'll be too weak to defend ourselves. We'll be weak and drugged to the point we can't even move.
This whole drug thing, I mean, we've got the CIA, the Mossad, running the secret, you know, looks like the CIA is working hand in hand with the so-called drug dealers, and this whole problem, you know, in my opinion, you know, I'm not advocating anybody do drugs, you know, and I certainly don't advocate anybody even do the prescription drugs that half of America is strung out on. How many Americans are strung out on Valium, on pain medication, on blood pressure medication, and
millions.
So they've really done to America what they did with opium in China. It's just, but it's been cleaned up, and it's part of the it's part of the culture here. They years ago they wouldn't even allow you to advertise for Valium on the television, and that got changed.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty sick of these pharmaceutical ads.
Every other commercial. I mean, I don't even have a TV, so I've really kind of avoided all that. But
well, the message they send is you're sick and dying, sick, old, and dying, and over half the message is about the negative consequences of the drugs that they're selling, which they're required by law to say those things. But I mean, you know, think about it. Why are they putting this in your face? Are people really going to the doctor and saying, you know, give me that purple pill I heard about, you know, or is this just a way for them to say, look, you know, this is a projected image of your health. Your health is bad. You're old. You're dying. You're sick.
Well,
you know.
You'll
take these pills. You will take these pills, even though the cure is often worse than what you had in the first place. About so much of what we see on the television at this point is now contrived. It's part of an overlapping stratagem to degrade this country further and take it on down.
Well, let me give you you know, I've always tried to tell both sides of the story here, and so I think this would be this is an appropriate time to hear from some Hispanic leaders here in the United States. You old white people, it's your duty to die. How about from the Los Angeles City Council, Richard Alatorre said they're afraid we're going to take over governmental institutions and other institutions. They're right. We will take them over. We are here to stay. And the national newspaper of Mexico, Excelsior, said the American Southwest seems to be slowly returning to the jurisdiction of Mexico without firing a shot. And Professor Gutierrez from the University of Texas, we have an aging white America. They are not making babies. They are dying. The explosion in our population, I love it. They are shitting in their pants with fear. I love it. That's the professor at the University of Texas.
Mm-hmm. On the government payroll, just like the Fort Hood assassin.
Yes, and what are our answers here? What are our answers here? Now, what I'm trying to do with the sheriffs, and of course I'm going to get Sheriff Deaver, he's a racist. He's a racist. Sheriff Arpaio, he's a racist. He's a racist. And Clay Douglas, he's a racist. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what religion you are. But if you know, I took an oath to defend the Constitution. And the sheriffs are our one guideline. And Sheriff Richard Mack, who's been on my show a number of times, who I've known since he, basically since he fought the Brady bill. And he is trying to organize the sheriffs around the country to stand up to this. Larry Deaver asked me to put together an event in Cochise County and bring the bikers in. I mean, imagine the sheriff opening up the whole county to a few thousand bikers. But that's happening. And
well, a lot of the sheriffs are certainly responsive to the people, and that's what we need right now is elected officials that are actually responsive to the majority of American citizens. That would be the solution.
Are we getting that? Are we getting that? Whoops. Don't know what that was, but of course the Arizona now, the sheriffs are standing up for it. Deaver, Babo, and Arpaio, they're all standing up for it, and they are being attacked. The federal government financed the BATF that financed the drug smuggling. And Holder has known about this for years. The federal government is suing the state of Arizona to keep them from enforcing federal law. Can you enlighten us a little bit on that? You still with me, William? What did I do? Did I lose somebody here? I guess I did. I lost a couple of people here. Let me see if I can get them back. Oh, this is weird. I lost a radio station and I lost my guest.